New Year's Eve is meant for celebration, but when the clock strikes midnight, not everyone welcomes the new year. Across the world, December 31st has been linked to chilling encounters, ghostly apparitions, and hauntings that return every year. Tonight, we uncover real horror stories connected to New Year's Eve, stories that remind us some spirits never move on. Story 1. The Phantom Party of Château de Brissac. Imagine the tallest castle in all of France, a 7-story monument of stone and history reaching toward the sky in the Loire Valley. This is the Château de Brissac. Long before it became a tourist destination, it was a 11th century fortress, eventually rebuilt in the 1600s with gold leaf ceilings and velvet tapestries. But beneath the opulence lies a gruesome New Year's Eve history. In the 15th century, the castle was the site of a double murder. Jacques de Brissac, the son of the owner, discovered his wife Charlotte in the arms of a lover. In a fit of medieval rage, he murdered them both. Ever since that bloody night, the Green Lady, so named for the colour of her dress, has never left. While she is seen year-round, New Year's Eve is when the castle truly wakes up. History tells us that after the murders, Jacques was eventually forced to sell the castle because he was driven mad by the constant moaning of his wife's ghost. Today, witnesses describe a terrifying sight. When the Green Lady turns to face you, where her eyes and nose should be, there are only black, hollow holes, relics of the violence she suffered. On New Year's Eve, local legends say a phantom party manifests in the Great Salon. Sounds of clinking glasses, ghostly laughter, and the rustle of silk dresses echo through the halls as the clock nears midnight. Tourists and staff have reported sudden, bone-chilling drops in temperature and the smell of roasting meat from a kitchen that has been cold for centuries. As the new year begins, the celebration abruptly turns into a chorus of agonizing screams, marking the exact moment Jacques discovered the betrayal. Story 2. The New Year's Eve Apparition at Eastern State Penitentiary. In the heart of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, stands a crumbling stone fortress that redefined the meaning of hell on earth. Opened in 1829, Eastern State Penitentiary was the world's first true penitentiary, designed to inspire penitents through total isolation. Prisoners were hooded whenever they left their cells. They lived, ate, and exercised in complete silence. The psychological torture drove thousands to madness before the prison finally closed its doors in 1971. After its closure, the building fell into a state of preserved ruin, and the spirits of the broken men took over. On New Year's Eve, the energy in cell block 12 becomes electric. This was the site of the prison's most intense hauntings. One of the most famous encounters occurred with a locksmith named Gary Johnson. While performing maintenance on the locks of cell block 4, he felt a force grab him so tightly he couldn't breathe. He looked up to see a swirling mass of black shadows pouring out of a cell, ghosts of men who spent decades of New Year's Eves in total darkness, listening to the distant sounds of city celebrations they would never join. On December 31st, visitors near the perimeter walls have reported hearing a phantom countdown echoing from the guard towers. Guards who worked the New Year's shift in the mid-1900s often reported seeing the Soap Lady, a pale, translucent figure, pacing the halls, weeping because the new year only brought another 365 days of solitude. Today, if you stand in the center of the hub at midnight, you might hear the rhythmic jangling of keys and the heavy thud of iron doors closing, even though no living hand has touched them in 50 years. Story 3. The Midnight Bells of Borley Rectory. Once known as the most haunted house in England, Borley Rectory was built in 1862 on the site of an ancient monastery. The history before the haunting is a dark weave of forbidden love. Legend says a monk from the monastery fell in love with a nun from a nearby convent. They attempted to elope, but were caught. The monk was hanged, and the nun was bricked up alive within the walls of the convent. The rectory was plagued by poltergeists from the moment the bricks were laid, but New Year's Eve was always the peak of the activity. The most chilling after-haunted history involves the investigator Harry Price, who spent years documenting the phenomena. On New Year's Eve, the Nun's Walk, a path on the grounds, becomes a corridor for the dead. Witnesses have seen the nun gliding across the grass, her face a mask of sorrow, disappearing the moment she reaches the edge of the property. But the most famous New Year's incident involves the phantom bells. At the stroke of midnight, the bells of the rectory, and later the church nearby, have been heard ringing a frantic, discordant peal, even when the bell ropes were tied or removed entirely. In one recorded encounter, a group of skeptics staying at the house on December 31st reported that heavy oak furniture began to slide across the floor toward the fireplace as the bells rang. Even though the rectory burned down in 1939, locals in Essex still claim that on a quiet New Year's night, you can hear the faint, ghostly tolling of bells coming from the empty, overgrown lot where the house once stood. Story 4. The Ghost Train of St. Louis. Imagine a stretch of abandoned land where the iron rails were ripped from the earth decades ago. To the naked eye, it is nothing but a scar across the Canadian prairie, just north of the village of St. Louis. But on New Year's Eve, the spirit of the machine returns. Although often associated with the northern border, this legend is whispered in every haunted railroad town across the United States as the ultimate phantom light mystery. The history before the haunting begins in the early 1900s, when the Grand Trunk Pacific Railway carved a path through the wilderness. It was a time of steam and steel, but it was also a time of tragedy. The most enduring legend tells of a Canadian National Railway conductor in the 1920s who stepped off his train on a frost-covered night to inspect a faulty track. In a horrific accident, he was struck by an oncoming locomotive and decapitated. The tracks were eventually abandoned and fully removed in the late 1980s, but the energy of the disaster remained. The history after the haunting is even more surreal. Despite there being no metal rails and no possible way for a train to pass, thousands of witnesses have seen the St. Louis light. On New Year's Eve, the activity reaches a fever pitch. Real encounters describe a massive, blinding white beam, exactly like a locomotive headlamp, thundering toward observers at high speed. Just as it seems it will crush them, a smaller, bobbing red light appears beneath it. This is said to be the headless conductor's lantern, swinging in a rhythmic, eternal search for his lost head. On December 31st, 2014, one of the most famous modern videos was captured by a witness who expected a quiet night, but was instead chased by a light that blinked and pulsed with intelligence. Skeptics claim it is the diffraction of car headlights from a distant highway, but locals who have stood on the old bed at the stroke of midnight say otherwise. The air turns ice cold, the smell of coal smoke fills the lungs, and for a few seconds, the roar of a ghost train drowns out the sounds of the New Year's celebrations. Story 5. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. The final and most famous legend on our list is a global phenomenon that seems to peak every year as the clock strikes 12. From the lonely highways of Illinois and Arkansas to the fog-shrouded Bluebell Hill in Kent, England, the Vanishing Hitchhiker is the ultimate New Year's Eve spectre. The history before these hauntings is almost always rooted in a specific New Year's Eve tragedy. In many versions, a young woman, often dressed in a thin evening gown or a white prom dress, was killed in an automobile accident while traveling home from a New Year's Eve party. The most famous original encounter dates back to New Year's Eve in 1931, when a driver in the United States picked up a girl shivering in the cold. She gave him an address, but when he turned to speak to her just blocks away, the back seat was empty. The history after the haunting has turned these locations into modern shrines for the paranormal. In England, on the A229 road, drivers have reported hitting a woman in white on New Year's Eve, only to find no body, no blood, and no damage to their car. In the United States, the most famous encounter involves a driver who lent the shivering girl his jacket on New Year's Eve. The next morning, he went to the address she gave him, only to be met by a grieving mother who told him her daughter had died on that road 10 years prior. When the man visited the local cemetery, he found his own jacket draped neatly over her headstone. On New Year's Eve, these encounters take on a prophetic edge. In some European accounts, the hitchhiker isn't just a victim, she is a harbinger. In a famous incident from the mid-20th century, a driver claimed his passenger warned him of a great calamity in the coming year before vanishing. As you drive home this December 31st, be careful of the figure standing alone under the flickering streetlights. If you stop to give them a ride, you might find that you've invited a century of sorrow into your car, a passenger who will disappear the moment you reach their home, leaving only a faint scent of winter flowers and a chill that never truly leaves your bones. As the old year fades and the new one begins, remember, some doors should never be opened at midnight. If these stories sent chills down your spine, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay with Shadow Whispers. Because the darkness doesn't end when the year changes. Happy New Year, if you dare.